What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and man, it is nice to be able to talk. Whew, this has been a rough week, and it's been a week where literally the past couple days I've been trying to cram in as many videos as I can. So you guys who have been watching them, I really do appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to recap Saturday's games of week 2 of the XFL football season. I hope you're ready to go. All right, if it's your first time here, hey, I'm glad to have you. If you're a return viewer, thanks for coming back and thanks for watching more videos. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate all the love all you guys have been giving me. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. I thank you so much, and continue to give me those comments down in the comment section. You know how I love to interact with you guys down there. And listen, we're almost to 1,000 subscribers, and that really opens up really more ways that I can communicate with you guys, and really cooler, neater ways that we can kind of, converse back and forth and have these conversations, and really kind of discuss more of what we love, which is football. And it just so happens to be with the XFL, and that's just been fantastic. And so I've really, really been loving that. And, speaking of talking with the community, listen, Michael Saber, I don't know how you pronounce your name, and so I apologize for that. But you bring up a good thing. Listen, Tompkins was the man today. And you bringing that up even before the game started and asking me what my thoughts were about him coming back. I hadn't really talked about it in my preview. And, he made a big difference today. So, speaking of that, let's go ahead and let's start into our first game. Listen, DC, they had a big crowd again there today, and they were rocking, they were ready to go, and I was thinking that this was going to be a game of two titans. Now, if you watched my preview of the game, you know that I had kind of two things that I figured were going to happen in this game. DC was going to completely come out and obliterate them, or that it was going to be a close game, but DC was going to pull it out in the end. So I went ahead and took the Guardians and the points, and boy, was I wrong in this one. It was a blowout, and the Guardians were a mess from the get-go. And good night. We talk about turnovers, and we talk about the turnover battle, and really kind of going through listen, if you're a football person, you got to win the turnover battle. You want to win the possession battle. And, and the list goes on of kind of these things that are traditional about, football. And DC just came out in all aspects and just hammered New York. Now, I will say this. I don't necessarily think that New York is absolutely broke. I think Tampa Bay right now is broke. But New York, the thing is they had two crucial linemen out today, and it looks like during the middle of the game they lost a third. Not to mention that it looked like Victor got some type of leg injury. They never came back out and said anything. I don't know. Some of you guys have already probably been on the message boards. You probably already know what's going on with Victor. Victor's probably been their strongest running back. And, up to date. Now, I will say that today, that Cook played better than when he did the first game. But Victor only had 3 carries, and he was looking strong, running strong, and then something happened. He got injured, went into the tent, and he never came back in the game, and that was earlier on in the game. So there are some factors with some injury things. I think that not only is DC a very good defense, and they got a really nice, front seven, and man, adding Anthony Johnson in there, good night. And they pretty much got him for free. The guy had 1.5 sacks. I think it was like two tackles for loss or 3 tackles for loss, something like that. Let's look at that here real quick. So, yeah, Anthony Johnson, he had 1.5 sacks, and then he had 2 tackles for loss, which would probably be the sacks. But good night. The guy's only been with the team maybe 2 days, maybe, and he comes in, and he has such a big impact on the game. But that's really where I saw a difference. This O-line, couldn't do anything for Matt McGloin, really give him any time. He was flustered the whole game. From the minute go, he was flustered in this game, and it showed. I don't think Matt McGloin is a bad quarterback. I just think he had a really bad day. I think that the Guardians across the board had a bad day. You could tell the coaches were fighting with each other on what plays to call on offense, what plays not to call on offense, and DC just really outclassed them in all aspects of the game, whether it be special teams and having some special teams type of a, kind of miscues here and there. We had the defensive score. DC really looks like the complete team, and right now they are the team to beat in the East. Now we will see what happens with Seattle. With St. Louis come tomorrow, and how their game ends up, and how they really, because they've got a test with Houston tomorrow, and how they really handle that, or really tell us a lot about how the East is going to shape up. I think the New York, they can get their offensive line healthy and get Victor healthy and get back to playing their style game, which I think that they can. I think that they're going to be, like I said, about a 500. I said that they were going to be about a 500 team from the get-go. Right now they're 1-1. Nothing's really lost here for them. Now I will say that that DC winning this game really launched them ahead of the rest of the teams, especially if St. Louis is to lose to Houston tomorrow. But New York has everything to play for right now. Tampa Bay needs to figure a lot of things out. If New York can get back to playing New York ball, I think that they will be good. Now, another thing that we have to mention here, with this is, again, Tompkins and all the other guys that stepped up. I thought that we were going to see a little bit more of Rashad Ross, and we did get some stuff later on. But Tompkins was really the guy that they really tried to feature. Look, at Tompkins and Rogers. Rogers was the guy that we kind of knew was going to be there. But I think it was just kind of interesting to me that Tompkins was really, really the guy. And, Ross looks like he's going to be kind of their special kind of like, we hit him here and there type of a guy. But, man, their pieces that they have in place there, they just have abundance of riches. I would really like to see the running backs a little bit more, with this. I mean, granted, Pumphrey actually played really well this week. I was really impressed with the way he ran. Presley runs really hard. He just doesn't get the yards that you would think that you'd want him to get. And Pumphrey, he averaged over 4 yards a carry, which was decent to me. I thought that was good. The key here with this DC Defenders team is it all revolves around Cardale Jones, and he knows what he's doing. He makes really good decisions. Now, he made a couple of decisions here and there, but the way that he reacts to him really, really impressed me. So we have a tale of two different quarterbacks. Both of them threw interceptions, now granted, in different places and different times in that with it. But Cardale Jones, the difference that he did, now granted, it was kind of more wide receiver actually got up to get a ball. He thought he was going to be throwing out of bounds. But the way that he responded to that and the way that he responded throughout the game, listen, the New York Guardians defense isn't really a bad defense. They just went against a really good offense with a really good NFL caliber quarterback who has poise, who understands what's going on, knows how to move in the pocket and leave the pocket, throw on the run. Cardale Jones right now has the full package. And, so the defense shouldn't really hang their hat, on this type of a thing when I'm looking at this at the end of the day, because I really do. Now, granted, they gave up almost 400 yards, but I think towards the end they were pretty much just, they were done, so I just feel like all facets of the game, DC really has a really nice handle on things. I really like the fact that Cardale Jones, he only ran once today. He ran a lot more last week than what I would like him to, getting himself kind of in those, those areas and those things where you just don't want your quarterback getting hit. Now, granted, he's like 6'5", 260 pounds, so he's going to be hard to take down. He's going to take a hit well, but still, you don't want to see him get hit. Now, let's look at the other side of things with Matt McGloin. I think he just needs to shake this one off, forget about it. They all need to go into a room and just forget about this, get back to square one, try to figure things out, because Matt McGloin really is this team. Williams came into the game, and kind of spell him and listen, you need to get Matt McGloin out of that game. And supposedly what was trending on Twitter was that he got benched because he was yelling at all the players for not doing what they're supposed to in the locker room and that. And listen, Matt McGloin missed some plays himself. I mean, they even, showed, his sluggo that he missed, threw the ball on the wrong side of the field, and that was after he was already flustered and that with it. So I just feel like they didn't really handle adversity very well this week with that. So, as we break this thing down and as we look at it, I really like what I'm seeing from the DC defenders. Now, granted, I'd like to see a little bit more running, but hey, I like the running game. I'm just that type of a person. But listen, it was a fun game, even though it was a complete, utter blowout. DC made it fun. All the different ways that they scored, all their different trick plays, and just how fun they make it. And also too, they did methodical drives as well. They did some good sustained drives, and they finished drives well. And that's been one thing that's kind of been hard for some of these teams in the XFL so far, is to finish drives. They've been able to kind of get down, inside the 30, inside the 20, but they haven't been able to finish drives. Vipers. And so, as we look at that, that's really what's going to take these teams from being either mediocre or bad to the next level, is really finishing things out. And we're seeing that with the DC defenders. Now, next week could change things. And listen, I'll take the loss, even though I feel like it's a half loss, because I said that I said that it could be a DC blowout, or, it could be a close game that DC pulls out in the end. So, I feel like I can get that half win, right? Just kidding with that. I'll take the loss on that one. So overall, I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed seeing, what DC had to offer. DC really stepped up, and the home crowd was there behind them, and it was cool that they were cheering them on. I liked this Saturday announce teams, both of them. I really like Steve Levy, what he's doing. McElroy is actually starting to grow on me. I really wasn't a fan of him during college ball, but he's starting to grow on me with this XFL. I really like the fact that they're embracing the XFL. Let's go ahead now and let's change it to the evening game. And the evening game started out, it was rainy there, but man, the people there in Seattle were ruckus. They were on top of things, and they just wanted to be a part of that experience, which was really cool to me. Listen, they had that lower bowl full. They were saying around 30,000 people. Who knows? We'll find out tomorrow exactly how many people that they had there. But they legitimately had, if you saw the shots that they were showing, that lower bowl there in that stadium was full. And it was loud there. You could definitely tell that it was loud, because the Vipers were having issues making calls and figuring things out between. I mean, that was a huge thing. You could definitely tell that that Seattle was getting an advantage on defense because they were missing guys in that with it. It was sluggish at first. The first quarter, nothing really happened. You could almost like a slept through it, and you would have been all right. The second quarter pretty much could have done the same thing there. I mean, it was 3-0 going into halftime, and the Vipers really just kind of had that, that 3 points, just kind of taking it in, not really taking it in half, but that's kind of how things almost transpired. It was only within the last couple minutes of the game, of the half, in that with it. So, listen, I feel really good about this game. I feel really good about my pick. Why? Because I have not been high on the Vipers. If you've been watching this channel, you know that I think that they're dysfunctional, and it shows. I've said that since the beginning of minicamp and training camp, and I've stuck to my guns when everybody else has still been giving them the benefit of the doubt. Who knows? They'll probably go in and be like a 1-point favorite next week. They've got talent. I'm definitely going to concede that they have talent. But they're just not a good team, and part of it has to do with Trestman. Trestman needs to figure out what he's going to do, and stick with it. This whole running 2 quarterback systems and then bringing one in when the other one makes a mistake, and then, changing things up in the middle of a drive, bringing one guy in and one guy. Listen, you just need to leave them in. They've got to learn. And that's the way it is. Cornelius, I thought, as they pressed things, he got better as the game went on, but he was just in a ruckus environment. And again, they were also down some offensive linemen too. And so you can kind of see where the defensive line and the defense really picked up for Seattle. I was kind of surprised, with how they did. They for this Tressman offense, which is usually a huge yards offense, to keep them under 300 yards was I thought a pretty good feat on the day, especially when a lot of it came on that kind of that last drive that they had and things with it. But I thought that Seattle, once they started to figure things out, I thought that was really, really cool. Now, Brandon Silvers, I don't put him in the same category as I would Aaron Murray. Aaron Murray, I've seen enough of Aaron Murray to know that I don't think that he's going to turn the corner. Do I think that he's going to be better than Cornelius? Maybe. My thought process is I do know that Flowers made some mistakes, but I think if you give the guy the reins and keep him in there even through the mistakes, I think that he'll be much better. The problem is he doesn't really get an opportunity to really run the full offense. And so, as I kind of look at those type of things. But going back to Silvers needs to really find himself. He's a younger quarterback. He needs to really be able to kind of mature through this thing, and Zorn knows that, and that's why you didn't see B.J. Daniels at all, which just kind of stinks. I mean, he's a really dynamic player, and we kind of want to see him, and I know that the Seattle faithful, especially after Silvers threw that pick six, they definitely wanted him in there. You could hear the boos when Silvers came back out, but listen, it was all sunshine and smiles after he threw that touchdown pass, which was a really nice pass, and that's why I'm not really done with him yet, because Brandon Silvers kind of gets it. When he hits Keenan Reynolds in stride and leads him that way with that, it was gorgeous. I want to see more of that. Now, his completion percentage was absolute horrendous. He had that terrible interception. Only had 91 yards. Their passing game was horrible. Their running game was decent, not great. They didn't have a whole lot of yards, but they didn't need a whole lot of yards. They need to figure out a way to really get Trey Williams into space more often and do more with him. I was really kind of disappointed. I was really disappointed that they didn't Austin Pearl, I was really surprised that they didn't get him more into the game. I really liked what they did with him in the first game, and it just seemed like they couldn't get things together with him. And I don't know, maybe it could have been that defense that they were running, just that very aggressive defense, which you would have thought, those short passes, those crossing routes, a lot of that stuff would have been more conducive with getting all that pressure. But I think a lot of it had to do with Brandon Silvers getting jittery and having issues and holding onto the ball too long. With that type of a situation. So getting into that second half, though, man, that was a fun second half. We had the pick six, which kind of, took all the air out of the room, and it was 9-0. And I was really starting to sweat, and I mean sweat my my pick for picking Seattle. And I go, I'm starting to think to myself, here I go. The Vipers do me in week 1, and now me not picking them, they do me in week 2. But it ended up being just fine. Brandon Silvers, that's why I've got hope for him, because he comes back and, man, hits Reynolds in stride with a pretty ball, and now all of a sudden things are changed. Things are looking up, and before you know it, they score 17 unanswered points. And they go on and win it, and it just continues. I don't know how a team does this. They're 2 games into the season, which is fine. I've seen worse without scoring a touchdown, but how do you get into the red zone? How do you get with inside the 30 that many times and not come away with points? I mean, it boggles my mind. It's just like the craziest things happen. They get to the 1-yard line. They stuff him, and it gets so bad to where they end up trying to kick a field goal. They screw it up by a bad snap, bad hold, and then it ends up they don't get any points. I'm baffled by it. That literally the only touchdown that the Vipers have scored this season so far is a defensive touchdown that went for 79 yards, interception, return for touchdown. It's just, it boggles my mind. It's crazy. And as you start going down the line with things, I mean, you look at the offense. They might end up being one of the top yardage offenses, and that's with a 3-quarterback system. And like these things just, they don't make sense. When you sit down and you look at you look at all of this, you would think that with 19 first downs that they would have done well. That having almost 300 yards, 289 yards to 200 yards, that they would have done better. Now, granted, they had 3 turnovers again. They got bit by the turnover bug, and they need to figure this out. And I think a lot of that has to do with Trestman changing the guys in and out at quarterback. You need to just stick with a guy and go with it. Now, I thought you should have pulled Murray last week, and you should have pulled him and not put him back in the game. I think they would have scored a touchdown had you not have put him back in the game last week. But it's just, I mean, you just look at these things over and over and over again, and I am just baffled by the fact that this Tampa Bay team, one, doesn't have any wins, and that they haven't scored a touchdown on offense. It boggles my mind. They do have a lot of talent, and I know that that's where people are coming from with these spreads and why they've been favored in both of these games. But when you don't have a quarterback to get them the ball, and they're making bad decisions, listen, that's just kind of the name of the game, to where you throw all of the other stuff out the door and you look at that turnover margin and and their red zone, scoring efficiency. And you look at that and you're like, well, I can see why they haven't won a game and why they haven't scored a touchdown, because it's a big goose egg on offense with that. So, the Tampa Bay Vipers, I think they can win some games, and I think that they will win some games. Cornelius or Murray, I don't know. It's a toss-up. Like I said, I would just go with Flowers, put Flowers in, let him do his thing. Now, granted, he had that interception, which was a mad, crazy interception. I don't think I've seen anything, quite like that in a long time. So when I'm looking at that, I want to make sure that I give the credit where credit is due. Frazier, good night, man. Jumping up there, grabbing that ball. Like, that's big league football. And we needed that play. We needed, the game was a defensive game. And sometimes I'm okay with that. You guys out there that really like those defensive games, you probably love this game. It was in the rain. It was wet. It was sloppy. But we had some big plays. And listen, it came down to the end of the game. They still had a shot to win it at the end of the game. So it kept you there the whole time, which is huge. It felt like a big game. It felt like, a professional game. And not only on top of that, it had big plays. We had the 79-yard touchdown the interception for a touchdown. We had the 68-yard touchdown pass that Brandon Silvers threw. That was a beautiful pass, beautiful catch for a touchdown. We had that interception for a touchdown, which was just a freak athletic play. Now, the announcers did go through and they did it kind of explained that with it, which I think has been kind of cool. They've been explaining football as we've been going, which I really do like. Again, my hat's off to the officials I don't know where they're getting these people. They say they're getting them from the college ranks, and a lot of these guys do look familiar from watching college football. Now, I couldn't tell you exactly, what squads they were on and things like that, but I can definitely tell you, like, oh, I remember that guy, and that with it. But they're doing a great job calling these games. I don't have really any qualms with the refereeing. The officiating has been fantastic. I really like it. I like the transparency of it all. It's really, really nice to just kind of know the thought process that's going in. And maybe that's what's helping me with it, to see what they're seeing, understand how they're taking it, and then how that translates to the field. Maybe that's why it's not making me so upset about these calls that they're making. So I think they've been hitting it out of the park. The NFL, you need to figure something out, because what you've been doing is just terrible, and you really need to adopt what the XFL is doing, especially with the officiating. They're definitely getting that right. That's one of the things that they are getting right, which they're getting a lot of things right. I really like Kurt Menefee and what Joel Klatt are doing. Both of them are breaking down the games really well. I like the Saturday teams. I wasn't as big up on the Sunday teams. The Sunday teams weren't as great to me, the announcing, but I just love the tidbits that we're getting and the little pieces here and there. Now, Brock Hurett, I think he's figured out this analyst position, because he kind of comes in when he needs to, and he's figured it out perfectly, and he does it really, really nice. Whereas I think the other one, Diane Rossini, I think that she does okay job. Pat McAfee had a hard time figuring out when to chime in, when not to, and I could definitely tell, because that's not really his personality. Whereas I thought that Brock did a really nice job. He knows when to chime in, when's a good time to bring it into the broadcast, and when's a good time to lay out. So I really like the Fox, the Fox thing. And Joel Klatt, what he does is he's the college guy. So a lot of these guys really haven't played since college. So he does a really good job, because he knows them from what they did in college, and he can make that connection and kind of put them in the place where they are now. So what they were and what we can kind of expect from them. And so it's really nice that when they marry those two together. But I really, really like both of the Saturday teams. I wish they were on Sunday as well. We'll see. Hopefully, maybe the teams will get better this week, now that they've got a week under the belt, and kind of have a better idea of what's going to go on with that. All in all, though, pleased with both games. I really liked the blowout with the first game. The DC Defenders, them dismantling them, like really nice, dominant game. Some fun plays, some big dynamic plays, and then having a really nice slugfest with some really nice athletic, dynamic plays. Athletes being athletes, and really just showcasing the XFL. I think that Saturday was was really good for the XFL, and I think that it'll just keep bolstering up the XFL. I do think, though, that these game lines, the over-unders are going to need to drop, and I would say this week you're probably going to start to see them drop to probably somewhere in probably the 30s, probably like the mid-30s to lower 30s. I think you're probably going to start to see those lines dropping. I just think that the over-unders are way too high right now, and I think that they're going to adjust that. But who knows? We might have some crazy scoring games tomorrow. And I'll definitely be trying to get that video up. Like I said, I'm kind of behind the eight ball because I've been sick this week. So my preview video for Sunday's games will hopefully be posted up probably early Sunday morning. How early, I don't know. We'll see where we get with that. All right, guys, that's a lot. We covered a lot, but hey, we had another good, successful day of professional football in the XFL. Who would have thought? I don't know. I enjoyed it. Question is whether or not you enjoyed it. I hope you did. All right. Well, I know that you're busy, and I know that I'm busy. So let's get on out of here. You have a good night. Bye.